I'm Res. I'm Res. Following for YouTube. Joel Sage, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss Hannum High, starring Clint Eastwood, Ed Begley. Man, there's a who's who of who's in this movie. Man, Pat Hingle. Butch, what do you think of this cast?
That's actually, I was making notes because I started watching it, I think Monday night, and I was like, man, I'll forget all this stuff. So I actually made some notes on a piece of junk mail. But one of them is about the cast. Let's see. Alan Hale Jr., Bruce Dern, L.Q. Jones, Ben Johnson, Pat Hingle, Inger Stevens. I mean, this is a great cast. I mean, and this movie always reminds me that Alan Hale Jr., or as most people know him as, the Skipper, would have made great villains.
Yeah, yeah. I watched Gilligan's Island before I watched this movie, and
Same.
when I saw him, I'm just like, wait, that's the Skipper. So, I was like, oh my god, that's the Skipper from Gilligan's Island. So I was shocked when I saw it. My grandfather, he didn't tell me nothing. He didn't tell me who was in this movie. I'm like, it's Clint Eastwood stars in it. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I'm watching, I'm like, oh wait, that's the Skipper. So I agree with you. The cast of this is amazing. I mean, there's some Western actors in here that you're familiar with. Ed Begley, I mostly see him in like dramas or
Mm-hmm.
like political thrillers. The first thing I ever saw him in was 12 Angry Men with Henry Fonda. Which, with funny story about that, a little side note to that, real quick. Not trying to get off topic, but Fonda actually selected the cast for that movie because he put his own money into it. He produced the movie. Everybody that's in that movie he wanted, he got. With this, you get Ed Begley, Pat Hingle. My God, like just the fact that you get Ben Johnson, he's not in this movie that long, but he's so good in it. It is nothing new because he is just. I sort of wish we would have got Ben Johnson would have got his own Western TV series because it'd have been good.
Dennis Hopper.
Yep,
I
Dennis
forgot about
Hopper.
him.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper's in this movie.
For like, you know, 3 minutes, but still.
So that's the thing. Dennis Hopper would be in other westerns. This one, he's not in it very long. A movie we covered on this channel before, Warlock. He's in that movie a lot more. He's actually more of a main character. He's more of a main character in that movie than he is in this. He's there and then he's gone. So you don't see. I like how they get that he's one of the guy. This guy who played the skipper is one of the guys who questions Clint Eastwood before they hang him. There's the gentleman on the horse, the older guy. He's like, well, if he's a wrestler, why didn't he run? I love how they start this movie. What did you think of the opening of this, Butch?
It's a great opening. I mean, it starts right up, and then we get into two things that I have points about that I wanted to bring up. Clint is taking his herd over a lake, and one of the calves sits down. And he has to pick it up, carry it. So you see, he's a caring man. And then all of a sudden, here come like 10 guys over the hill, not smacking leather, but they're moving pretty good. And I'm sitting there going, every time I watch this movie or movies like this, I think, grab your damn rifle. I know it's a movie, but when a bunch of guys come running toward you and you don't know who they are, always go get your rifle and get some cover. There's nothing good going to follow this, and of course we're right. Like you said, they think he's rustled and killed a friend of theirs, and we understand their the reason they're doing this, but and again, kind of plays back into the theme in the Western about, the sheriff or the marshal is God knows how many days away, and a lot of just regular guys stepping in to do what they think is justice, but they kind of screw up on this one.
Yeah, Ed Begley saying Hannum is like a really good line, and what a veteran actor to bring in for your heel. And it's the fact that there are so many people that represent that kind of a threat to a character that Eastwood's playing. It's not just Begley himself, but Begley is the brains of the operation. And it's always nice to see us, you don't have the biggest muscular guy being the villain. You have somebody who's just really smart and knows how to handle situations like this. And he even tries to handle it, not to jump ahead, but he tries to buy his way out of this whole mess through the sheriff of the town who has got a bad back. Which is funny because when I always look at this guy, I'm thinking this guy does not look that old enough to have that severe of a bad back. What was he doing? Wrestling, bull? I always think the sheriff in the town where he had the bad back was a professional bull rider or bullfighter or something.
That's Uncle from Red Dead Redemption 2 before he hooked up with the gang and Dutch with his bad back and his lumbago. Hey man, let me tell you, old age or young age is no indicator of bad backs. I always had a pretty decent back till I had a little incident here around the house, and I mean, I can still lift stuff and whatnot, but there's times, yeah. I mean, I used to always think, what a lazy poop. You just don't want to go do it. Now it's kind of like, well, let me. I still think that a little bit, but also I have a little bit more sympathy for him. Now, something I wanted to mention is, I think this is my second note. They ride up on Clint, and there's like 4 or 5 of them, including LQ Jones, got guns drawn on him, and they're like, "Throw down the gun, throw down your gun belt." And I'm sitting there thinking, "What's he gonna do? Outdraw all 10 of you, including the 3 behind him?" It's like, what? I mean, it just, I don't know. I kept thinking about Kurt Russell's Wyatt Earp, where if he already had the gun out, he could point it at Ed Begley, who, like you said, is obviously the leader. And it was like, "Well, they'll get you in the crossfire." Yeah, but you'll be the first one dead.
I think I sort of think that's their logic too. Like, we can't let him get anybody, let alone Ed Begley's character, who's sort of your leader. And I'm with you. Like, the scene, that's sort of the scene that's a bit funny because it's like there's 10 of them and there's one of him. I swear to God, what they're doing is they're envisioning the Poncho and the character from the Dollar Trilogy. They're just seeing the Poncho like, we can't let him go for his gun at all, so we'll tell him to drop the gun. But which, it's a little fun. It's a little fun you can have with this movie and look at it that way, even though it's not that. But I love the character here. He plays this is very different from his character he played recently, going off the Dollar Trilogy. In the Dollar Trilogy, he didn't play a lawman that we knew of. Here he plays an ex-lawman, and he gets into cattle. He wants to be a cattleman, which is he's not making a ton of money doing it. He just bought the cattle, for God's sakes, and he's even got a bill of sale that he shows the lynch mob. But this lynch mob is more eager than the lynch mob in Halloween Kills, and that's saying something.
And they're a bit more successful than the lynch mob in Halloween Kills.
Yeah, what Halloween Kills really needed was Ed Begley. If you could have had Ed Begley be in Halloween Kills, the late great Ed Begley be in Halloween Kills, if you could have did an alternate timeline, everything would have went well. But I just love this scene. You're right. This scene is really well shot and well done. And I love all the different little camera angles we're getting from the cattle, from the ground standpoint of the cattle and the horses and the little river he crosses, to how you see them come up. You see this sort of wide shot, and you see the dust kicking up and them coming right at him. The camera work is bitchin' in this movie.
And it's very obviously influenced by the Dollars films. I think it's over on Wikipedia. They call it a apple pie western, saying it's an American version of a Spanish or an Italian version of a western, which I kind of like that. I mean, it has obvious flavor. I think it was intentional just because those movies were so popular and they were really coming into America around that time.
Yeah.
And but I don't think it was like, hey, we got Clint Eastwood, we got to do, got to really come up off with the Dollar trilogy. I think it was just, hey, this is popular, let's do this.
Like if you're looking for like a clone of the Dollar, a really great clone of the Dollar trilogy, see Sarbucci's Sartana. It's in Spanish, but I promise you the action is worth it if you've ever seen it.
Hey, we've talked about Bruce Dern before, and I've always talked about how he always plays trash. Boy, he doesn't break character here. I mean, they've got poor Clint lynched on a horse, lynched over it. And what does he do? Oh, well, I'll take his wallet. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, but when Bruce Dern says taken, well, it's like Willie Loomis say, I'm going to the mausoleum just to visit somebody. No, you're not. You're going to steal. Bruce Dern is so good at playing a dirtbag. He's got it down to a perfection. If you've ever heard of the wrestler Mr. Perfect, that's Bruce Dern when it comes to villains. He's Mr. Perfect. He literally is the perfection of bad or evil in westerns. And it's funny because when WWE made a movie and they cast Bruce Dern, I'm like, he's playing a villain. And guess what? He played a villain.
It's like, for me, when I was a kid, if Vincent Price or Sir Christopher Lee were in a film, at the very least, they were playing someone you were supposed to think was the villain, if they weren't the villain.
And like when they were opposite each other, it was one way or the other. But with this, Bruce Dern is always, you can depend on, in westerns with Bruce Dern, you can depend on one thing: dirtbag. That's it.
That was his niche.
And that's just it. He was so great at it. And it's weird because we're watching when we watched the Cowboys. When I watched the Cowboys as a kid, it was such a great movie, and it was just me and my grandfather. And he goes, "We got to go pick up your grandma from work." And when we picked up her, we brought her home. There was another Western on. And he was in the next Western. She goes, "Hey Ray, isn't that son of a bitch who shot John Wayne?" And I'm just like, "What, Grandma?" But it's like, again, my grandmother was a wrestling fan, so she'd say, "Oh, that guy's an asshole." So the villains, but it's like he's so good at being bad. You get why people think that. Bruce Dern was just such a great actor. He was in Gunsmoke, by the way, too. No shock. But again, just a very good actor. And I gotta give though the steal away of this movie, even though he's in and out of this movie. When you watch the movie as a whole thing, the whole thing from start to finish, Pat Hingle steals this movie. I mean, in every way.
Yes, that's literally one of my points here.
Go ahead, Butch. Sorry.
I just said that's literally one of my points. Pat Hingle steals this movie from Clint Eastwood. He's just, man, he's on the screen. He pulls you in, and he at times he's a jerk, and at times but he's supposed to be based on the hanging Judge Parker, but that scene where they're about to hang the guy. For anybody that's not seen it, Clint gets hung, but before he dies, or does he? We'll get to that in a little bit. Ben Johnson comes and saves him, takes him in. Clint gets brought before this judge, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we found out the guy that did it, and we're going to hang him." And because it's weird, because Clint describes the guy he bought the cattle from, who actually stole the cattle and killed the cattle owner that Clint gets hung for. He describes him to the lynch mob. Well, then the guy we see get hung, in my opinion, doesn't look very much like him, but that's neither here nor there. But they're about to hang him, and the hangman looks towards the judge, and the judge, Pat Hingle's just kind of like, yeah. I mean, he doesn't like it. Where everything I've ever read about the hanging judge is like, yeah, do another one.
Yeah, it's somewhat based on the real life hanging judge, but Pat Hingle gives his own version. I love what Pat Hingle does because this is a fictionalized tale, but they're sort of taking some of they mentioned the sorry, I'm still
Fired.
yeah, when Clint Eastwood's character is in the carriage and Ben Johnson has to apprehend a crazy man and he ends up killing him. Before he kills him, they said, "Don't you want you don't make about the cheating the hanging judge?" And I'm like, and that's interesting because there is a real life hanging judge. There was a real life hanging judge in the Old West. Now, Pat Hingle, to be clear, Pat Hingle isn't playing that real life character, the real life person, but it's somewhat based upon him in a sense. Pat Hingle, though, what I give Pat Hingle credit for, he's sort of doing it in a sympathetic way to a degree where he's like, I don't really want to do this, but this is my job. I'm the law here. And he makes that he's very matter of fact, and you love him for it. I love when Clint Eastwood, when Jeb goes to pick up the badge, he goes, "You bring those men to me." He grabs his hand, and it's such a good scene.
Yeah, everything with Pat Hingle is great in this film. I mean, he's one of the reasons I watched this film. I knew who he was when he was cast as Commissioner Gordon in the Michael Keaton Batman films, but this is Pat in his prime, in my opinion. It's a pleasure to watch it. I mean, watch him perform because a lot of people, everybody, I don't know. Most people like Clint Eastwood, but let's be honest, Clint doesn't have a great range, and he's not like an emoting actor. Nobody's going to confuse him for Johnny Depp or whoever you want to throw up there, Jack Nicholson. So it's kind of like. And I had this thought while watching it. It's almost like having William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy from the Star Trek, the original series, because Nimoy even says to Shatner at one point in real life, he's like, you were kind of energetic and exciting, so I could, as Spock, be restrained. So it's almost like, Clint is Spock and Pat Hingle is Kirk, and they're, that you've got that contrast, which makes, actually helps both performances.
Yeah. I have a question for you because I want to ask you because I got to get something from my fridge. But what did you think of the towns, the settings?
They were really good, I thought. It's not your typical. Well, maybe it is off facades, but they especially when they do the big hanging about midway, 2/3 through the film. You've got the super hanging set. I think 6 men being hanged at one time, and it without overpowering it gives you a lot right there away to. It does its job, and I enjoy it, especially when we get to Clint in his recovery. If you catch my drift, wink, wink.
Yeah. Clint Eastwood's recovery is it's like Franco Harris's reception. It is immaculate in every way.
Don't ever say that to a Raiders fan.
I'm sorry. I'm a couple states away. I feel a little safe right now. If I see my door getting kicked in and I see a guy with shades, I know I'm not. No, it's really. That's my next question. I agree with you. The towns look really good, but they have a gritty feel to them too. Like even not just the jail cell. The jail cell I love. It's dirty. It's filthy. It gives that. You're sort of hoping they get hung in a way, where because it's like that jail cell looks like you would just die in it. And that one old guy, he looks near death, and the guy that Eastwood asked to be pardoned, one of the guys who tried to hang him because he's so old and he realizes the guy's remorseful. By the way, the skipper had to get the guy who played the skipper does not make it to the hanging judge. The sheriff with the bad back ends up shooting him, unfortunately, because he let him out of jail. What a sheriff!
Hey, let me ask you this. Let's talk about that for a second. He does. I agree with the point where he's like, town needs a blacksmith. he's going right over here. Okay, I have that part. I have no problem with. But then he talks about I went to my friend's house, a house where I'd had many meals, and I went to bring him back, and he ran, and I tried to shoot low, and I'm not good at that. And while the sheriff is there telling all this to Clint, he's also been paid by Ed Begley's character to, hey, here's the 800 that you bought, for those cattle, and he wants you to know everything's, settled and whatnot. I was wondering if Ed Begley's character didn't pay him off to kill the skipper.
Yeah, you could sort of take away that too. They make very little. There's no real subtlety with this movie. Like they don't hint it. You know what I mean? Which is a great job. You're left to your own devices with this movie and own interpretations, which is great. This is why this is a really great Western too. It's sort of where if Val Lewton had made a Western, he would have made this.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I mean? You know what I mean? Let the audience interpret what's going on. Don't answer the questions. Keep them asking.
Just like we talked about last week.
Yep, with High Plains Drifter. But with this, you make a great point, because you could sort of look at the sheriff and go, okay, he's being paid off Ed Begley's character to give Eastwood the money to let it go. Did he pay the sheriff to shoot the skipper's character in this movie, the actor's character in this movie? Maybe he did. We'll never know, but it's a question you can keep in the back of your mind. It takes you back to this movie, and it's a great point of view you just made. I'm glad you made it.
Thank you. Normally you start this off and you'll ask me, when's the first time you saw this movie? And I was waiting on that because I have a cute story for it. But since you didn't ask, I'm going to go ahead and tell it anyway.
I was waiting.
It was, I guess it might have been going into 1980. I remember I was a kid and my dad stayed up and watched this. And the only reason I remember it is that sound that they make with the hangman dropping the I remember that. I mean, because my dad, God bless him, my dad was a carpenter pretty much all of his life, and he went from sort of deaf to at least halfway deaf, so the TV was always up kind of loud, and I remember I mean, that's kind of like burned into my brain as long before I ever. And this was up late. It was late. It was probably 9 o'clock. That's or 10 o'clock. So I didn't watch it then, but that sound stuck in my head. And then one day, whatever day I was first watching, I'm like, oh my God, that's that movie from when I was a kid. And it does have a good theme to it. It's not, it's not quite Ennio Morricone, but it does have a very recognizable theme, and it's that's to me that's kind of tying back into the flavor of the Dollars films, but not not necessarily stealing from them.
We have one more movie to go after this, which is Pale Rider. Each of these movies has their own distinct theme. Yeah, High Plains Drifter. We left the link for that one. If I can find it on YouTube, I will leave a link for this one, Hannah High, which is really good. It fits the tone of the movie, and So here's the big question for you. Oh, by the way, the first time I saw this movie, obviously, I was a kid. I was at my grandparents' house. It was Saturday morning, and Westerns were on, so I got to watch Hannah High. And it was just a fun watch. I mean, I would sit there like the biggest part of the day and watch Westerns with my grandfather. Thank you, Grandpa.
Yeah, thanks, Grandpa.
But when we get to Nevada Smith, that's going to be my favorite story because it involves my mother too. But that's just funny. But so here with this. Clint Eastwood's character gets hung literally at the beginning of this movie. Jeb gets hung. So Butch, did Clint Eastwood's character die in this movie? Is he death?
In my opinion,
Yes.
no.
Okay. Why not?
Why would he be interested in Inger Stevens if he was dead? I mean, admitted she's an attractive lady, but I mean, if you're a ghost, you're not going to be interested in making playing house with a pretty lady.
Well, there was that one scene in High Plains Drifter.
But no, we're not talking about that.
Yeah, well, I know. I just wanted to get that cheap jab in there. I know. But with this, here's why I disagree with you a bit with this. We don't see the character bleed when he gets shot. When he gets shot in this movie,
Oh yeah.
And you never see him bleed during the shooting. Even when you I think if you watch this on DVD, I've watched this on TV, and I think I watched this on Turner Classic Movies later in life, where it was on Turner Classic Movies shows the movie as intended, uncensored and commercial free. I don't believe the character bleeds at all.
I thought he did.
Well,
I mean, I won't. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you,
right,
but
right.
I mean, I think there's like, I swear there's like he gets shot and he falls over and very dramatic, and there's like maybe he's like, and then he collapses. But if there's not much. I will agree with that.
It's brief, is what I'll say. If it is like it's so
Yes.
like the way they shoot it is great, because again, I think they do this on purpose, because I think they're trying to let the audience decide what's going on here. Again, this is very, like I said, it's very Val Lewton-esque, even though Val Lewton's not doing it. It's really good. By the way, Inger Stevens, great actress. Great. She did a hell of a job in this movie. I love her and Clint's chemistry in this movie. But I do think, because when he gets hung, I think he dies. And I know we see Ben Johnson reviving him. I think he's just going through the motions of getting up off the ground. And when he gets shot, I think he comes to the real. Now he is. I will say, what's against me in this movie, he is sick, and he gets sick in this movie. So you could make, well, dead people don't get sick. Again, you can interpret this movie however you like. It gives that feel of is there something more going on with this movie? It asks the question without answering, in my point of view. Which is why I enjoy it, which is why I call this the Angel of Death trilogy, which this movie starts, whether it wants to admit it or not.
Yeah, I won't argue it, because I can see that, and you could easily tie this into the other films like you've done with High Plains Drifter and Pale Rider.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the beginning of it, and he, or whatever, because and if you go straight into High Plains Drifter, he was a lawman.
Yes.
You're talking about Inger Stevens. According to I did some reading. Apparently, her and Clint had an affair during this film, so their chemistry was not a lot of acting.
Did I think I'm gonna just take a wild stab here. I think Clint liked to fool around with his female co-stars, because this is not the only one he does it with.
Oh no! Apparently, apparently he did. And unfortunately, I think it's like 2 years after this, she passed away from an overdose of barbiturates.
Oh.
And actually, not around the same time Egg Begley passed away. So unfortunately, this I won't say this was towards the end of her career. I mean, unfortunately, of course, she didn't know that yet.
No.
But I saw it referenced twice. Apparently, towards the end of this film, she went to the director, whose name is escaping me at the moment, and said, "Hey, if you're ever doing another film with Clint, you have a role for me, call me."
Yeah. I mean, that's the set too. They had such great, and you'll see this too with Hollywood. like the actors have such great chemistry. The chemistry is not all an act. Like they literally have that the natural chemistry of falling in love or just having a relationship. Um, what's the one girl's name from Dirty Harry 4 where she plays a vigilante?
Lock.
Yeah, that's Eastwood married her actually.
Yeah, he was with her quite a while.
Yeah, so I mean, Eastwood just like the full stars.
Apparently.
Not that we're saying there's anything wrong with that, Mr. Eastwood.
Let's say it might not be the best of choices. Let's say that.
That's true. It might not be the best of choices.
Because I used to be a fast food manager, and more than once I would have to sit down with new managers or new people that would get promoted, and I'd have to explain. I remember looking at this one guy, his name was Jimmy, and I'm like, Jimmy, have you ever heard the saying, you don't shit where you eat? And he had never heard it, so I had to explain it, and I'm sitting there thinking, I remember the first time I heard this saying, I immediately understood it. But anyway, of course, I guess when you're the chef and you own the hotel, the restaurant, and the food, I guess you can do whatever you want there. Because Clint, I think this was the first movie that Clint produced. I think that was the first one with the Malpaso production. So
it may have been. I did not look that up before we got on here, so I apologize.
I think this is the first one.
What did you think of how they did the hanging process in this movie? We did have Eastwood's heading, but we do have I like how when Eastwood's in the jail, they're calling the hangman a bastard.
Our boy Schmidt, he uses nothing but the finest hemp.
They're complimenting and they're like backhanding him at the same time. And it's like it gives that funny feel to it, but it's like they know what's coming.
That whole scene. I know I'm jumping forward a little bit, but that whole scene, the whole big hanging scene.
Yeah,
that is a great scene. The older guy you're talking, not the older guy you're talking about. There's an older guy that Clint runs into, and I meant to look his name up and I forgot. He's in a lot of stuff. He has a very distinctive voice, kind of heavy set guy. They bring all these guys up. And they're like, he goes, do you have a last request? He's like, sure would like a chew of tobacco. And he takes it. And then they go to this next guy. Oh, Lord. He goes on for like 5 minutes. Oh, when you drink alcohol, you're taking the devil into your mouth. And he just goes on. And so they go down to the next guy.
The swing.
And this may be my favorite scene in the whole film. I want to, pardon the glasses, folks, but I want to quote this and get it directly because I love this. They're like, you have last request? Tell him to shut up and let's get on with this.
When I was rewatching this past week, I'm watching that scene. My wife's like, wow, that guy's an asshole. I'm like, honey, he's a killer.
But you know what? He's an asshole that has a point.
It's like you're at the gallows, like you're given this sequelae of a speech. Like, who gives a shit?
It's like, what are they going to do? Kill you? Oh wait, they already are. So
this is. Can we speed this along? Hell's waiting for me. I got to get going here.
There's let's see. Clint accepts the job from Pat Hingle.
Yeah.
Goes to pick up a prisoner. He finds a guy named Ringo, who was one of the guys that hung him. He ends up killing Ringo. And he when he comes back, the older guy you're talking about has turned himself in. And I'm trying to just speed it along a little bit. Anyway, he gets warrants he has the names of all the guys that hung him, and Pat Hingle sends him off, you need to bring him back alive. Like, who is he? Frank Buck? But old timer joke there. He goes to a town to pick up to get these one guys. He runs into this. The guy comes running up. He's like, Sheriff, the people killed my paw. I'll get back to that in a second. And my brother, and they took off with the herd, and Clint goes with them, blah, blah, blah. We'll get back to the rest of it. But Paul, there is just something about hearing a grown man refer to his father as a paw. It's just like, what? Dude? Dad? Father? Padre? I just, every time they killed Danny and Paul, my Paul and Danny, and my Paul, are you Mark McCain from the Rifleman? Are you 5? My paw. Anyway, I'm sorry. That just always. That's actually one of my notes here. Is like paw.
To Butch's point, the guy who's saying this, he's not even a teenager. He's a grown adult. He's basically I don't think he's quite Eastwood's character's age, but he's not that much. He's not that much younger than
20 to 30 would be my guess.
Yeah, he's a grown man. He's like, someone shot my paw. I'm like, your paw? Can't you just say dad?
Well, come to find out, the people that killed his paw and rustled the cattle, one of them was Bruce Dern, and these 2 boys from the town. And they catch up with them. They want the son of the paw and his friends want to hang him, and Clint's like, nope, I'm taking them in. And I'm kind of short selling a really good scene, couple of scenes here. Once again, Bruce Dern shows what trash he is, or plays. Tries to get free, and I tell you, man, I would have tied him over a horse, wrist to ankles, the entire time. It's like, you're not, dude. You're Bruce Dern. I'm gonna tie your knees and ankles together and drag you behind a horse if I have to. No, you're not getting anywhere near anything. But he brings them in and gets a reputation. And then we go back to trying to kill that's when the skipper gets killed. And I'm just trying to skip over some stuff. And the big hanging scene involves the 2 boys. Yeah. They're involved. Clint's like, hey, wait a minute. They wrestled, but they said they didn't kill, which it brings up a good point. Yeah. So because when Bruce Dern jumps Clint, they're both kind of like, should we? And it's kind of like, you're going, come on, help him. Yep. Meaning help Clint, for the record. Yep. Well, Clint gets the better, and there's even a point where Bruce Dern just looks at him and goes, kill me. Yeah. And I'm going, yeah, please do. But so the part of that hanging is the two boys. They don't help him, and Clint comes back into town, and he's like telling Pat Hingle, hey, they'd help. They if they jumped in, they would have had me. I just think they wrestled. And he's like, do you have any proof? Well, no. And it really comes across that they probably just wrestled the cattle that they didn't want to kill. That's crazy Bruce Dern. But unfortunately, there's no evidence, and you have a good scene between Pat Hingle and Clint, basically arguing, the evidence and right and wrong. And we also, at this point, bring in another great actor who you may or may not know. His name's Mark Leonard, probably best known for playing Spock's father, Sarek, on the original series of Star Trek. But he was also on the Planet of the Apes TV show when he played, I can't remember if the character's name was Urko, but he was based on Urko from the, and I don't mean the wizard from the He-Man cartoon. I'm talking the Gorilla Chief. But I love Mark Leonard to death, man. I'll watch anything with him in it.
Yeah. I really like how the whole, like when you see Bruce Dern and he's, when they said about cattle rustling, I'm thinking, this is Bruce Dern. This has got Bruce Dern written all over it. And surprise, surprise, or I should say, surprise, surprise, it was Bruce Dern. And you're right. The great scene between Pat Hingle and Clint Eastwood, which is so underrated. They're arguing not just the law, but how justice should be served, how this should really go. And it's a great discussion between the judge and his marshal.
and
And
setting up the later discussion they have towards the end of the film.
yeah, and you know, it's this movie sets itself up very nicely for its end. I mean, you're right. It really sets this scene sets that tone, and
Yep.
it does a very good job. I mean, you could say the tone is sort of preset when he says, "You bring the men alive," but this here, I feel, even goes beyond that when you're discussing these two boys who you're sort of getting the sense it's easy to make the decision to look at the boys. Well, they probably did just wrestle the cattle, and Bruce Dern did the murdering because he's Bruce Dern, and that's what he does as a character.
What he does.
Bruce Dern is the Michael Myers of westerns. You give him a gun, you give Michael a knife, somebody's gonna die. Um, so, and the judge tries them. You know, Eastwood's character, he has no evidence, and the boys are sent to the gallows with our good friend, and they all get lynched. They all get hung, I should say. And I love the discussion. He goes, "You're no better than the lynch mob." He goes, "Wrong." He goes, "The difference is that they have been judged." And I love that line by Pat Hingle. It's so good, and he's right. He's not wrong in this sense. And you know, again, he explained at the very beginning. Oklahoma Territory, the largest territory. I was promised a dozen marshals. I got 17 over this big terrain of bandits, outlaws, Indians, you know, rustlers, killers, you name it. And it's again, we've talked about this. He steals this movie from Eastwood in every way, just his performance. And I agree with you. This scene sets up the end very, very well.
It and you know, I think if anyone has any doubt as to the two young brothers' innocence, after we have that great scene with telling him to shut up, hurry up, let's get on with it. They come down to the two brothers, and the younger one, they're about to put the hood over his brother, and he's like, "Ben," and just very childlike, "Bye, Ben."
Yep.
I mean that you know, you're laughing, or at least I am, with the hurry. Let's hurry and get this over with.
Yeah.
And then you get to this, and here's the gut punch.
Yeah.
You're like, "Damn, they are." But then, for those of us that I don't know if you want to call it enjoy, but enjoy Bruce Dern's dastardly deeds, we get to watch him squirm as they go to put the mask on him, and it's just like, you know, something I think modern movies don't do very well is you build up to a villain, and when you know you're going to kill him off, you got to make that death worthwhile.
Yeah.
You want to see, maybe not squirm, but you know, something appropriate. And watching Bruce Dern's character squirm as they put the mask on, he's like, "No, no," and they're putting the noose on him. And something to point out to anyway, this is a little late. I wanted to do this earlier. When you hang someone, I think I've discussed this before. When you hang someone, what you're supposed to do is when it drops, the rope snaps your neck and kills you instantly. That's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what the hangman Schultz is or Schmidt is doing. The reason Clint, arguably, I'll give you that one, lives is they go to hang him, to choke him, to suffocate him,
Yeah.
and that's why he goes through the whole movie with a hanging, and that's kind of an important thing here because you see that scene, and the guy he looks up at Schmidt looks up at the hanging judge again, and he's like, and that's the thing, you know, if you want to, I don't think you can write Pat Hingle's character off as just some crazy hang 'em all type of guy. He obviously does not enjoy doing that. Again, as we find out towards the end of the film, there's a great scene where he's appealing to Cooper, Clint Eastwood's character.
Yeah.
And then they pull it, and it's like, and you hear that sound, and then Clint gets bushwhacked, which is a scene that Joel was talking about. And something I wanted to mention in that the scene is shot very well. It's very chaotic, and I feel like it's an attempt to give the viewer what Clint Eastwood's character is feeling. It's like, wait, what? Who? What? You know, and by the end, he's already been shot like 5 times.
Yeah.
So, you know, It works very well, in my opinion, to give you the chaos of the moment.
Yeah, the shoot. There's not too much bang bang in this movie, but what there is really really good. You have the shootout with the guy with the eye patch, where he recognizes. I love my favorite line in this movie when you hand him in, you look at him and he shows him the scar. That's my favorite. My favorite line in this movie. It's so good by Eastwood, and later on when you have the shootout, or essentially a shootout, but the attempted assassination of Jeb Cooper, we'll call it. And they all come in and they start shooting him. He's standing there and in the whorehouse, he gets shot. I'm like, he goes down, and then the woman, the blonde haired girl, she stays with him. I'm like, oh wow. And I think the reason she stays with him because Inger Stevens's character, her husband was murdered and she was raped. And they mentioned this in this movie. And it's such a I mean, what an actress. I mean, she sells completely. I mean, she's so good. And I'm telling this because this is why when she saw Jeb Cooper shot, she saw her husband.
Yep.
In a lot, I think in every way, shape, and form, she does not scream. And the reason she does not scream is it's familiar to her. It's something she's seen before, and it's
And it allows her to exercise the demons
yep.
of that previous thing where she, obviously couldn't do anything for her husband because she was being taken, I believe is the term. They took me and took me and took me. So I feel like Clint kind of, saving him allows her to, maybe move on a little bit. She's not by any means over it. We see that in the remaining part of the film.
Yeah.
But and you come up with the madam. She has a great line. She comes in, he's in the room, and the madam comes in. She's like, Rachel. Her character's name is Rachel. She's like, Rachel, do you want me to take over? She's like, no. And she's like, okay, honey. But when he gets better, you're going to have yourself a man, and you need to decide what to do about that. And that's another great line, because both of them, this is not anything they're looking for. Neither one of them's looking for someone to fall in love with. But I've often wondered, her character, of course, does her character really fall for him, or is it just in saving him, he's replaced her husband?
Yeah, I think again because this movie doesn't necessarily answer the question more asked it. I think you could interpret it any way you'd like. I think with her character, for my money, when she sees him shot and she sees her husband, again, like you said, you made a great point. The difference is she can do something here. She couldn't do something back then. So now here's her opportunity, and she does. And I think, like you said, the madam does make a great, but I think she already realizes this too, to a degree. Like she knows that she's going to have a man on her hands when he gets better. And, she takes care of him when they go on that picnic together. He's like sweating and like it looks like he's gonna collapse, and she helps him. And then that's where she tells him about her husband. And later on, after everything's said and done, she says, "I can move on now. I can move on from can you?" And I love what Eastwood says here. He goes, "That's just it. The people I'm chasing aren't ghosts. They're real." And it's, to me, I mean, again, there are a lot of great lines in this movie. Do not sleep on Hannah High, but it's so good, their chemistry, and the fact that I agree with you. I do think, for my money, I'm sorry, I keep rambling. With this, I think that you're right. She looks at him like he's somebody I can move on with, to a degree. But the big question is, And it's sort of, yes, this is sort of where the movie, like the end of the movie, sort of does a really cool and funny thing, but at the same time, it's awesome. He literally, Jeb Cooper, the biggest difference with every Eastwood character, I would say, with this, with other than the other ones he's played, Jeb Cooper's is done. He's willing to walk away with the rest of them men out there, even though the rest of, there's other men out there that hunt him. He puts down the badge. He's willing to walk away. But what really keeps him, because he wants to go off of Finger Stevens' character, so to sort of ride off into the sunset moment. But in order for him to free the man in the jail cell, the older man who turned himself in, one of the men who hanged him, the hanging judge, Pat Engel's character, again, this is where he steals it. I'll free him if you pick up that badge. And it's so, he's not necessarily blackmailing. He just wants him to stay because he's a good lawman. He catches the men. And it's so criminally good, the ending of this movie.
It is, and no, I mean there is a little bit of blackmail, but he, for me, the most important part of it is he's like, I mean, Clint gives him some mouth, and they kind of argue like we talked about the law and justice, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need somebody like you to challenge me, somebody to say because he's like, I wish there was someone between me saying this man's innocent and this man needs another trial and this man is guilty, or I forget exactly how he phrases it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need you. I need someone to help me, to question me and help make me, not. He doesn't want to turn in to the hanging judge.
Yeah.
And I really don't consider that blackmail. It kind of is, I guess, but it's like, I need somebody like you. Ironically, it kind of becomes a almost a Batman, Commissioner Gordon kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Or maybe Batman and Alfred, if you prefer, but someone to help keep them grounded and considering, quote, the little man, end quote.
Yeah, he's looking for somebody to be more his conscious compass. Yeah. He has a conscience. I want to make that clear.
Yes.
But he wants somebody to challenge that authority, because up until this point, no one has.
No, and no one challenges him.
Yep, until Jeb Cooper, which is Eastwood's character. I think that's the best, one of the best dynamics that you brought up with Hang 'em High. Here's Eastwood's character. He's the first real character to challenge, the judge here. Jeb Cooper challenges the judge, and we don't really get to hear anything. I take it that Ben Johnson's character didn't, because again, he didn't want to kill the guy. He had no choice, but the judge wields a lot of power.
I will say that's Ben Johnson, and I have no problem believing he could jump on the horse and go lasso him real quick and hog time and throw him in. But it makes for a good point. That's knowing too much about Ben Johnson as opposed to his character. I think his name's Bliss, Marshall Bliss. Excuse me. But I don't think I think you're right on. I don't think anybody had the guts.
Yeah.
And with everything the way it falls in this film, he right away kind of has a respect for Clint's character, and they bounce off well together. And it's going to be a bumpy relationship between them.
Yeah.
But in the end, no pun intended, it's going to work out.
Yeah, you can make a lot of comparisons, like you said, Alfred and Batman, or Commissioner Gordon and Batman, or in many ways you could say Jim Eastwood sort of being his Jiminy Cricket too, but with a badge. But again, great direction, great shot sequences. I love the camera work in this movie, the acting. What do you give this? 1 out of 10, Butch?
9, 4.5 out of 5. It's we've talked about other films. Maybe they're better films, definitely more higher budget, definitely tell more a complex story. But one of my notes here is this is kind of like somebody's on a quest, but they keep getting hit by side quests, and it's an enjoyable film. Everything kind of relates back in. And the ironic part, and I want to bring this up: the last three guys. Well, two of them get away, and we don't know if they'll ever be caught. But the last three waiting on Clint, he gets them all, and he finally comes to Ed Begley's house.
Yeah,
he's trying to get in, and he finally gets in, and then you don't see Ed Begley. Well, guess what? Ed Begley hangs himself. I mean, in the irony department, it's like, because he had a gun. It's like, dude, you could have shot yourself, but that wouldn't be appropriate. I mean, it's such an appropriate ending for his character.
And every time, like, I don't know about how you feel about this, but every time I watch this, I don't expect that. Like, you know what I mean? Even though as many times as I've seen this movie, I'm always expecting him to use his gun and shoot himself or even shoot Jeb Cooper. But no, he hangs himself, and it's still to this day one of the most shocking endings for me as a Western, just from a story standpoint.
It's good and ironic because a hanging, pun intended, ended his life.
Yeah. He was,
and this time he gets it right at the end. I guess because maybe it's just Ed Begley look like he's hung. He looks like he's suffocated. He looks like I don't think he snapped his own neck. I think he choked himself.
Yeah, I did too. I agree with you. I don't think he snapped his neck. I think he choked himself.
Let me look over my notes here, see if there's anything else. One thing, when he goes back and talks to the older man in the prison, the one that turned himself in, Clint tells him, "I don't hold you accountable for whatever it's worth." And then the old man says, "It's worth something."
Yep.
That is I can't give that scene the proper gravitas, because it comes across so sincere. I mean, this is not your typical Clint Eastwood can shoot five guys before they all blink character. Joel Cooper is much more human, much more average, above average maybe, but this isn't, Clint can take on the whole army and he'll win. Yeah. It's a good scene, and it's a good character, and maybe you don't care for Clint can take on everybody and win. This is the film for you, man.
Yeah, I give this movie a 9.5. Really, really great. Just solid film from start to finish. It's a perfect story, and it's a story that leaves you asking questions, and it's really, really great.
You're talking about the towns. As Clint leaves to go after whoever he's going, of the two other guys that got away, which we presume he catches. The credits roll, and like you see Clint, it's sitting over the town. You see Clint leave, and people are there's a wagon that goes by, and somebody goes riding by as the credit. And if I watch that more than I watch the credits, because it's the internet, we can look those up. But it's such a great scene. There's just people walking, and it shows you a view of the town, and I don't know, it kind of brings home the fact that this is intended to be a real town. It's those kind of scenes, I think, just work better. Just let it roll. Just let it roll.
Yeah, because you don't get the sense of, oh, this is just another Western movie. Here's this real town with this real dilemma, with this real situation. And it paints that at the end too, with the way they shoot it. They pull the camera back, and you're seeing Jeb ride off, but not into the sunset, into the next outlaw he's pursuing.
Yeah.
Really, really great. Our next movie is going to continue the Angel of Death trilogy with a little girl's dog gets shot. No, I'm not talking about John Wick. I'm talking about some little girl in a where they're prospectors, and she asked God to send her a miracle, and He sends her Clint Eastwood. Uh,
But does God answer or does somebody else?
that's what we're going to get into next week, my friend. Uh,
For those of you that don't know, that's Pale Rider.
Yep, Pale Rider, great movie. Butch, buddy, this has been a lot of fun. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
I think I got it. Had to put my glasses on to read my notes, but I think we got everything. Check it out, folks. It's a good film.
Yeah, definitely. I caught this movie on Pluto TV. Actually, was really nice. So you can catch it on Pluto sometimes, or if you own the DVD, you could throw it a DVD. Get the Blu-ray. Get the Blu-ray.
Well, mine looks like this. I had it on the original DVD and got into a financial crunch, and I was like, well, let's make some copies and go sell some DVDs. So maybe I'm not. Wait. I mean, I found it on the side of the road after I sold my copy. Yeah, that's it.
Oh my god! You want to hear something really weird? When I bought the Crow on Blu-ray, I actually ended up losing some of my DVDs when we initially moved, and my wife's like, "We lost some DVDs, so we had to go replace." Like, I'm like, how did we lose DVDs? Who misplaced these things? And my wife goes, "You know what? I think the reason we lost them is because we had so many, we didn't pack them all." I'm thinking, this is true.
Well, I think you can see mine over there, and I have like these flip flop cases, and I've got like 4 or 5 of them, and it's like they're all up in the attic, and it's like the cases are obviously the DVDs are here, and it's like they stay in there. And originally when they first put in, they're in alphabetical order, so I can go find them. And then being in the storage building, it's like okay, I want to watch this, and then after a couple of years, you're like, man, this is in no order whatsoever.
What did you think of the Raiders draft selections?
They did okay. I mean, they drafted need for the most part. I would have liked about, I don't know, 5 more DBs because our defensive backfield has sucked for like 15 years.
Yeah.
But they actually drafted for some needs. So I may not love all of them, but I think they did for the Raiders. They did amazing. For any other teams, they did okay.
I got to give my Seahawks a lot of credit. They had the best draft in a while. They drafted really, really well. I got to give. Again, we'll see what happens with Geno Smith at quarterback, but I'll see. I know I will. So here's the thing: he had a hell of a career at West Virginia University. Won every bowl game he was ever in. But I'm hoping he wins us the Super Bowl. The Seahawks, go team! The Raiders are going down, Butch. They're going down, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's my close stare.
Very nice. Very nice. I like that. Oh God. Football season can't get here soon enough. Can you tell?
Never can.
No, Butch, buddy, it's always a blast, my friend. I will see you next Saturday, buddy.
Joel, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. We'll see you then.
See you. Bye.
Goodbye.